Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Performance Management in the 21st Century. This is a teaching video on the fundamentals of management accounting, advanced managerial accounting, and strategic performance management. Performance management as such has become one of the most interesting and important social technologies of the 21st century with a long history and a bright future ahead. So welcome on board. Let's start the presentation. Performance management is largely about setting and reaching objectives. Therefore, we have defined 5 learning objectives for this module. First, understand current challenges of the business environment. This sets a strategic background of what we're going to do. Second, comprehend performance management as a social technology throughout history. This will make us sensitive for the power of performance management yesterday, today, and even tomorrow. Third, understand the concept of profitable growth and related metrics. Here we are at the heart of capitalism and at the heart of profitable companies. Profitable growth is one of the key concepts of business today. Fourth, comprehend the construct of performance management. This is about what performance management is defined, how it is performed today. And fifth, finally, understand the various roles of a performance manager in the 21st century. When we talk about business administration, we have to talk about capitalism, and capitalism is a constant crisis. Or, as Schumpeter famously put it, capitalism is a process of creative destruction. And yes, that means every time somebody comes up with an innovation, somebody else will see his business model being destroyed. This is natural, and this is part of the DNA of capitalism. Nonetheless, we are facing special challenges in our business environment of today. And this clearly goes beyond the overwhelming crisis we are going through right now, the Corona crisis. So we have advanced globalization. What does that mean? Advanced globalization means that the whole world has become one market. We have supply chains that cover the whole world. We have various production lines that depend, various production lines in Europe that depend on the production in China. We see that the markets have become really big. Freemium models for online games work only if you have maybe more than 100 million gamers. But this only works if you immediately see that the whole world is your market. Companies like Facebook have captured billions of users, showing that the market power of one single company, but you also see Apple, you also see Microsoft, you see Alibaba and Chinese players have a huge power. And it's getting more and more complicated for small countries like Germany to develop and build business models that are relevant enough to be able to compete in a really advanced globalized world. The Corona crisis will probably have take its toll on globalization. Some supply chains will be dismantled. There will be production being reshored, meaning production will go back to the US, will go back to Germany, will go back to Europe, and this will have huge implications. That means products will become more expensive, but more resilient will become the whole international supply chain. Don't get me wrong, I love globalization. I love the internationalization of the students and the teachers. I love the international exchange, and I do believe that this is a wild opportunity for everyone to explore, to travel, and to work abroad. However, we have reached a point where the globalization is at the tipping point, and the companies are not only taking profit from the globalization, but they also the recipients of the illnesses and the fragilities of a globalized system. Disruptive changes. What does that mean? Digital transformation, right? There have always been disruptive changes. We had the steam machine, which has dramatically changed the way people did business. And the internet has changed the way we do business. Not only that, the digital transformation has changed the way we communicate, how we learn, how we work, eventually remotely, how we teach and learn remotely, how we shop remotely, and how we produce remotely. Many companies that were fully dependent on the old brick and mortar business, like many retailers, for example, in Germany, have a huge problem with online technologies, online retailers that obviously have a much wider and broader variety of things that they offer, and it just gets shipped within 24 hours to your house or even sooner. So the business model has become better, the customer has a much wider choice, and also transparency about prices. Disruptive changes are not only good for the final customer, but to a certain extent they can be. A lot of people were busy within disruption workshops to look at business models that were protected and that these protections could be circumvented by new technologies. Of course, these were retailers, these were pharmacies. We see a lot of things happening. We have Airbnb, we had Uber, and all of these disruptive changes are here. Some are going to stay, some will vanish with time. But disruptive changes have become, at least in the perception, more brutal in recent years. And of course, the disruptive change of the corona crisis is brutal right now and will have repercussions on the time ahead. Talking about stakeholder exigencies, we talk about the political sphere taking hold in the business sphere. This might be can be regarded as a sign of maturity of capitalism, where important ideas like climate change, sustainability, gender, diversity management, all of these are now taking a very important part in the business agenda. Taking a quota in supervisory boards, for example, just as a recent example. So we had the original idea of Milton Friedman that the responsibility of a business is to maximize profits. But this is no longer enough. Stakeholders, NGOs, politicians, trade unions, all want to have a say on what and how companies produce, and business ethics play a very important part. On the one hand, I really believe that this is a good thing, because companies no longer can do their secret things and trade ethics for profits. But on the other hand, it is clearly a complication, an additional burden for the current management. Governance. Governance requirements have gone up. What does it mean? We need more police functions. We want to make sure that all these political exigencies, stakeholder exigencies, are also fulfilled. And for that we need a lot of governance requirements in the form of laws, regulations, and these have become more and more important. For example, sustainability reporting has become mandatory in 2017 for most of the companies in Europe. Risk management is important. Even resilience management becomes the norm. So there is a clear need to control what's going on. Governance can also be translated with the management of management. Yes, and this puts an additional layer of problems on current management. Talking about problems, let's talk about customers. Customers king, right? But unfortunately, these kings seem to become more volatile, and customer loyalty is getting less and less to be relied on. Yes, we do have some products who are so good that people keep on returning. But more and more companies also face the commoditization of their products and services and see that prices go down, and their customers are most willing to trade their products with the products of the competitors. So companies try to use gamification, try to use intermittent reinforcement to bring people into kind of a addicted relationship to us. So either we depend on the product or we have a mental dependency on the product. This kind of addiction loyalty is something that a lot of companies are heading for. This is not only true for alcohol, this is not only true for cigarettes. We can see it in mobile phones, we can see it in social media, and the economy has become an attention economy. People, the customers, also to a certain extent become the products. We have many industries who developed very interesting strategies to get the attention of the customers only to use their personal data or to sell personalized advertising to them. Unfortunately, this kind of relationship between businesses and individuals have become norm, so it's getting more and more complicated for companies to build meaningful relationships to their customers. Talking about meaningful relationships, demanding employees, yes, that's an issue. Of course, right now everything, or until now, until 2020, everyone who wanted to get a job got a job. It's very easy. The war for talent is on, and I'm sure that the war for talent will continue even after the corona crisis. Demanding employees means that those employees that we really want to have, because they're very productive, they have very special skills, they know how to code, they're very creative, they're good in analytical skills. They also have special sets of demands. They want to have a certain liberty of movement. They want to maybe have remote work. Or they want to have special cozy atmosphere in the company. Corporate culture has become a make or breaker for employee loyalty. As for customers, the customer experience as a loyalty driver is important. The experience of the employees is getting more and more important for companies to attract and retain the best possible talents. The second machine age is the age where the computers are taking over our work in the offices, the work that was already, the first machine age has taken over the manual work of the workers on the shop floor, and then the second machine age we see that the brain work is taking over. It is important to see that more and more is possible. We also see in performance management unseen and unheard of possibilities of data analytics, of visualization of data, of predictive analytics. That means forecasts that are really better than any human being could have done that. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, clever algorithms are really helping. And we've seen in the last 5 years a dramatic empowerment of the machines, and the performance management has, with the huge data that there is, has reached a new quality. It also raises a question whether the old or classical controllers will be able to deal with that environment. I'm very sure that the social technology of performance management still will be in high demand. The question is, how do we have to blend it with IT and statistical knowledge to make it even more valuable? Last but not least, political uncertainties are on. We're not only talking about Corona, we're talking about wars, we're talking about trade wars, we're talking about Syria, Turkey, we're talking about Libya, we're talking about millions of refugees, we're talking about political entities like the European Union, which don't know where to go. We talk about the US under the administration of Donald Trump, who has really stopped being the policeman of the world and now seeks more the America first in everything they are looking for. We see geopolitical challenges between the US and China and partly Russia. We don't know. We know that the political uncertainties have been worse than today, but they have been much worse than for the last 30 years. So overall, the current picture is quite challenging. I would say this is not a pessimistic outlook. The good news is that every crisis means constantly opportunity and threat at the same time. It's just life. And yes, we can build business models around all these challenges. Some will thrive, some won't. The process of creative destruction never ends. What is a social technology? It's a combination of using human, intellectual, and digital resources in order to influence social processes towards certain goals. This is a rather general definition of social technology. And yes, performance management, the German controlling, is something like that. Budgeting is a social technology. Every planning form, every game where we bring people to head for a certain direction is something like that. And if you look at a few thousand years ago, actually 5,000 years, you'll find that people used to have tokens, and these tokens were used as representations of reality. These kind of tokens were discovered and they were used as accounting systems. You see they're representing bread, or they're representing amphors or birds or sheep, and they are basically the SAP of the Babylonians, of the Egyptians. Isn't that fantastic? Every time, every generation has its own set of social technologies, and performance management has always been a social technology because we want to bring people to do things that they wouldn't have done otherwise. So yes, you might say it is about manipulation. It is, in any case, a social technology, and it is something that has been there for quite a while. Yes, let's have a brief look. So these complex tokens that we saw on the slide before, they were part of the value stream accounting that the Egyptians already had. The first accountants were scribes, or you might even say priests, because accounting was in their first beings something considered to be a sacred knowledge, because it was a social technology with which you could create something. And I would say building pyramids 5,000 years ago was a huge endeavor, and we're still looking at it with awe. So when we talk about performance management, management accounting, or controlling, we know that this is a very ancient technology. By the way, the same technologies that were used by the Romans, they were used throughout the Middle Ages, and it was and most of them are still valid today. So we're talking about budgets, we're talking about accounting in one form or another. Do you know why 1494 was an important year for accounting? I think another priest was relevant there. It was Luca Pacioli. And this Luca Pacioli, a monk, he developed in his Summa Mathematica the double entry booking system, of which Marx said that no capitalism was possible without double entry booking. So very important for accounting. The Industrial Revolution was the time of the professional business performance manager. It started with the textile mill owners who kept detailed records of cost. So cost accounting came from the 19th century. And yes, we had cost accounting here and there because efficiency of the huge industrial complexes became very important. The railroads, biggest industries of the 19th century, were the beginning of financial statistics and organizational performances. We also saw internal auditing there, but performance management was really developed to an extent where we would say, wow, this is something that we still would consider professional today. And one of the ending points was probably DuPont, where in the 1920s the Americans developed a clear system, where a clear set of techniques to coordinate their operating activities and their investments. They created an operating budget with forecast, and they had monthly revenues, sales, production, operating expenses. Actually, it looked a lot like today. And they had the capital budget, that was the investment plan. And the DuPont model showed the relationships between the value drivers and how to get to the return on investment performance. So the value accounting is actually quite old. One would say basically the fundamentals of business administration and performance management are about 100 years old. And then they didn't really change for quite a while. There was something that happened. We had the balanced scorecard and other things coming along because there was a discussion about relevance lost in management accounting. But yes, it still kept on going. The next topic is the performance management chain. It actually is echoing the idea of the DuPont scheme, where we have an operational performance cycle with a budget, a clear performance, where the budget leads to goals we try to perform, and then we control whether we've achieved the goals, and we assess afterwards whether we've done good or not. The operational performance cycle usually refers to the period of 1 year. This is a classical business cycle. This is the financial year as well. So the operational performance cycle also refers to the classical business model, the cash cow. This is how to run the machine, how to run it faster, how to run it better, and how to make money with it. You might say in a world where there's no competition, you could on running just in circles and be happy. Unfortunately, in a competitive situation, you also have to continuously improve. You have to work on your micro-performance loop. You schedule something, you find out that you execute continuous improvement projects. You monitor in detail whether your processes are getting better or not, and you fine-tune processes and organizational settings. This is very important, because this constant dealing with your business model, sharpening the saw, sharpening your business model, getting mean and lean, is one of the prerequisites for sustainability as a business. Unfortunately, we are in rather dynamic times, and we talked about the crisis situation, the ongoing. The strategic management part of the strategic performance loop is more and more important. That means it's not about just planning ahead with the business that we had, but we have to constantly analyze the business and develop plans how to develop our business model, how to develop even other business models, develop new products, develop new markets, how to transform our business, and how to achieve profitable growth in the long run. This performance management chain should generate profitable growth for companies. You might say that profitable growth is something of the past, but inherently to the capitalistic system is that companies need to grow, and need to grow profitably in order to sustain for a while. If we don't grow, we cannot provide perspectives to our employees. There are no career experiences. We cannot attract the greatest minds and people. We cannot pay them, if we're not profitable, the salaries that are due for outperforming employees. And if we are not growing profitably, our competitors will do so, and they will outgrow and outperform us, and sooner or later just buy us, which would mean our market exit. So, to repeat, the operational performance cycle usually 1 year issue is the beating heart of our company. And yes, the business model is there to provide money for our shareholders and for the sustainable operation of our business. On the other hand, we have to keep on sharpening the saw. We have to continuously improve how we're doing it, and we have to transform our business model by adding new businesses, by transforming existing businesses, by innovating and disrupting other industries. This is the performance management chain. So what then is performance management? I provide you with one definition. So I believe that management accounting or performance management is the art and science of performance management with the objective to enhance the value creation of organizations in line with stakeholder expectations. The art and science refers to two different approaches. Science is more method-based, is more fact-driven and experience-driven. We try to be as accurate about the past and the future as we can. It means we can start simulations, we use all the techniques that we know from the hard sciences and apply them to business. Art refers to the soft factors, pragmatic solutions. We shall not forget that when we talk about creating the future of a company, we just don't know. There are many things like demographics that we can prognose into the future, but there are many things that we just don't know. For example, when or if our competitor react to our move or not. So we want to enhance the value creation of organizations. Very important. This means in many cases to generate profitable growth, but not at the expense of brand value, not at the expense of ethics or at the expense of compliance with law and regulations. And this usually is what should be in line with stakeholders' expectations. Management accountants provide expertise in the tools and methods of data-based operational planning and control, as well as enhanced corporate governance. Hey, if you look at this, this is how to apply the social technology of planning into the world of businesses. And yes, this is a core competency of management accounting. This is the core competency of performance management. But think about tools and methods of data-based planning and control, and here we are already opening up ourselves to data analysis, to business analysis, to big data, to artificial intelligence, all of that. So true, and the operational planning also refers to the continuous improvement process, at least the tracking of what's happening. But then there's also the strategy part. So management accountants advise and assist in the strategic planning and strategy implementation process. Oof. You might say this is why we have McKinsey and Boston Consulting coming into the companies and getting paid a lot of money per day. No, I believe that this should be essentially also part of the management accountant's or performance manager's job. And yes, sometimes it is important to get external consultants to help us and to bring new perspectives, and sometimes it isn't. But the strategic planning and strategy implementation process is getting more and more important. It is very clear that in times of destruction, in times of innovation and transformative technologies, strategic planning and strategy implementation becomes crucial for the survival of a company, and we cannot just leave that to any external party. Last but not least, social technologies are also about leading, influencing people. And yes, psychological insights, people orientation, and critical reflection should allow the management account to serve as an effective performance consultant. This is not only about how to effectively manipulate people and how not to. It is also important to reflect about the fine line of what should be done, what could be done, what is allowed to be done, and take reflected ethical decisions between profits and the well-being of the people and the sustainability of the culture. Let's keep on rocking. The art and science of performance management in the 21st century. So we've already seen most of it, but if I go deeper into more details, let's start with the operational part. We see budgeting as one of the clearest areas of performance management. Budgeting, accounting, cash management, not only in times of crisis, but this is very important. Data analysis, reporting, could also be self-reporting, the understanding of IT systems, the implementation of internal controls and activity controls. This is a huge area, and there's nobody than the management account or the performance manager who sees this as part of his business. Yes, all of these are important in pure online worlds as well, and we have a lot of people who are dealing with that. But most of the companies are a mixture between offline and online, and the operational part is important. Second, strategy. This is an ever-changing field. Yes, sustainability is a huge topic, has been, will be. And here we not only talk about resource efficiency, we not only talk about social impact and ecological impact, it also means equality, gender equality, diversity management. Yes. Strategic planning is the long-term planning. It can be 5-year planning, can be 3-year planning in some areas. If you want to build a nuclear power plant, probably not in Germany, you need a 20 or 30 or 40-year planning period. We also talk about management control. How can we make sure that management is properly controlled and that their effectiveness is measured? Strategy also has the nasty topic of risk management, risk handling. Risk handling can even go to resilience management. So how does your organization perform in times of crisis? This is a very important question. And how to get prepared. Another important aspect is investment planning. So how do we take the resources we need to build up new plans, to build up new businesses, to invest in R&D and so on. And one important aspect is M&A management. In times where the natural growth of markets is limited, M&A or external growth is the norm. We talk about strategy, or the strategic parts of performance management. We also have a balance to strike between alignment, which means we make sure that everyone understands what the strategy of a company is and that everyone knows and performs according to the expectations of that strategy. Right? If you want to build pyramids, you have to build pyramids and you need a plan, you have to follow the plan. But if something happens and you have a dramatic shift in the reality, you need to maintain a certain agility that allows you to quickly shift your resources and your activities so that you can follow a new strategy. So between alignment and agility, there's a fine line to strike. That means if you're too aligned, you will probably not be agile enough to change again. And if you're too agile, meaning you're very self-organized, you probably won't end up with long-term projects. Although some agility people will heavily say that this, or might heavily say that this is not true and that we can build with agility anything, I'm not so sure. So, but somewhere between alignment and agility, we have to strike a balance. And last but not least, people orientation. People orientation starts with psychology and the understanding of behavior. We understand that we are in an engagement crisis. Many employees don't want to work the extra mile. They don't want to go the extra mile. They don't want to spend the best of their energy for work. They want the money, they want the work, they want a nice corporate culture, they want exchange, but it's very complicated to get the best out of them. It's not getting easier. Incentives can partly help, but we know that in many areas incentives are counterproductive and reduce the effectiveness of work. If you want to go into the area of consulting, controllers who used to be very proud of their knowledge that they required through analysis need to learn skills that are coming from the area of consulting and coaching. Maybe something that most of the controllers who are more data-driven were not so keen of. One thing that I personally find very interesting is the area of gamification, how to make your processes more like games, more entertaining, more engaging, more effective, more productive through game design. And as if you think about it, isn't the whole company a game? And isn't the controlling department with all the number crunching not just the game engine? We'll come back to that. Yes, and critical reflection of what is happening, not only on incentives, on behavior, but also on the ethics is very important. The performance management of the company is the core of the social technology of capitalism. So the controllers, the performance managers, the management accountants, the CFOs should be very well reflected and understand what they're doing. This is not innocent, And this is important to understand what's happening, to make meaningful decisions. The performance loop. The performance loop leads us into the realm of Norbert Wiener and cybernetics. This is about goal-oriented behavior in systems. And yes, this is about companies, corporations, and maybe also computers and computer games. It always works like this. So we create objectives like, oh, we want to increase sales by 20%. And then we go into action planning. That means, oh, we have to increase advertising and we have to go to North Korea to sell our things there in order to make that happening. And yes, then once we've planned the action, we go into the execution, say wonderful, we do that, we have the advertising campaign, we develop new products, we go to North Korea, and at a certain point of time we have to assess what we did. And yes, and a lot of people get their rewards, their bonus payments, and they're happy. And this keeps on going on and on and on. This is how businesses work, and this is how we also try to condition everyone into this world, right? This is, to a certain extent, from a psychological perspective, this is one of the only sane options of dealing, right? If you don't have an objective and you're not pursuing objectives, then you're either looking for new ones or you're clinically depressed. This is the DNA of the human beings. And because of this close and intimate assessment of the human being, we can take this engine for productivity and use it in companies. This is the performance loop. And this is the heart of performance management. Management accounting has developed from a clerical job, we might say first from a religious job to a clerical job to a performance agent, and we are now going from an analog to a digital task. All of that is true, and most of the jobs that were done 80 years ago by management accounts are now being done by computers. So let's move from left to right and see how the certain jobs that were classically done by people are now outsourced to intelligent IT. So data creation and collection. We had armies of people to collect data, to measure, to count, to put things into books. All of that, this kind of classical form of accounting, is now almost fully automated. This is almost miraculous what's happening. And then we had other armies of accountants and management accountants who had to start reporting. And this reporting is also important. But data creation and collection plus reporting, including wonderful visualizations, can be done automatically today. That leads us to the next point, business analytics. In today's world, there's software from Celonis, but also from Signavio, that will tell us, hey, your processes are not effective enough. And compared to others, you're losing a lot of money here. Business analytics can also go so far and say, hey, based on what we know already on the company, we developed automatically an algorithm about forecasting, and this forecast might already beat the forecast of the human controllers. So even business analytics is no longer something that the management accountant does for herself, but it can almost already come from the system, and maybe they're not even asked. The managers will directly ask the system, what about the situation? Business planning goes a bit beyond that. Business planning involves curiosity and the drive to change the world. And here, yes, it is to a certain extent budgeting. Budgeting can be aided, or let's put it this way, computers can help you with budgeting, but they won't be able to help you with investment decisions, with R&D decisions. So business planning, this is still a place where human beings are still important. Same for strategic guidance. Yes, the computers can tell you what's going to happen, how demographics will develop, but what to do and when to make the move, when to come up with a new product, what is the right pricing. That is something that you classically cannot give to the computers. But there are people who say, yes, you can. And the right price can be, we just make it on the fly. There's no long-term planning anymore. The opponents of this point to Microsoft, point to Apple. They say, hey, they had a long-term plan once they had the iPod and the iPhone, how to make it a worldwide business. And yes, they had a plan, and without strategic guidance and without clear human logic, that wouldn't have been possible. Yes, and business development. What to do, where to go, what companies to buy. Business development is still about the future. And the future is a land of management, of leadership, of human beings, and of business partners. That means performance managers who will work very close to management. I have a interesting take here. I'd like to introduce to you the Brilliant Management Account Manifesto. Ta-ta, right? The idea is that there are 9 elements or characteristics of the Brilliant Management Account. Let's start. Number 1, the Brilliant Management Account understands the driving forces in the relevant markets, the main competitors, and the strengths and weaknesses of his company. So what does this refer to? Clearly to the strategist within the management account. Here, the management accountant becomes a partner of the manager and the leadership in the area of strategic planning. Second, the Brilliant Management Account assesses business opportunities and business risks regularly. This is another area where people say, this is for bean counters, right? Business opportunities, especially business risks and risk management, this is boring. But it's not. If you look at the Corona crisis, yes, there are a lot of risks, and maybe it would have been good to have pandemic plans and crisis planning going on, but there are also a lot of business opportunities. Amazon directly, when it became clear that this was going to happen, they said they had put 100,000 job offers on the market because they saw this as a huge opportunity. And maybe they had just waited for that to happen. Number 3, the Brilliant Management Account understands the needs of the company's stakeholders and integrates them into performance management system. That's cool. Of course, this is also part of the strategic area, but this helps the leadership to communicate and integrate stakeholder management, stakeholders' views. This is particularly important for sustainability reporting. We'll talk about that when we go into that area. So sustainability reporting puts performance management of sustainable issues like ecological footprint, social footprint into the management systems. Number 4, the brilliant management accountant continuously strives to develop relevant performance measures. This is continuous improvement and also very important. You might say, yes, if we have a bean counter, that's probably where he would or she would work. True, true, true. Still very important. It's important to get, if you want to get profitable, you have to make sure that you stay lean and mean as a company, and you have to do the overall gymnastics on a regular basis to reduce the fat and the waste. Number 5, the business management accountant uses technology to generate and manage relevant data. Yes, this is a clear hint into digital transformation, the application of new technologies, the application of ClickSense, Celonis, Signavio, of powerful BI systems like Power BI or Tableau, and there's a lot that can be generated. So the data that we have from our social platforms, from our employees, there's so much, and we have to work with it, and we can only work with it if we use technology. Once the moment comes where we stop embracing new technology, that's maybe the moment where we should think about retirement. The Brilliant Management Account Manifesto Part 2. Number 6. The Brilliant Management Accountant defines performance goals for every relevant business unit and employee. There are no performance-free areas. Yes, cybernetics. Cybernetics, very important, and there might be areas, for example, R&D, where people believe, we don't need goals, we don't need performance, we need just freedom and art thinking and the artists' freedom, but maybe not. My personal experience in companies is that if we create no performance areas because we don't expect them to perform, they don't. People want feedback and they want to be striving in a company, in an area of an organization that it is expected to perform well. We all want that. And the management accountant, as the game engine, understands that. The Brilliant Management Account builds a performance culture that encourages plan execution. Yes. Performance culture, right? Not low performance culture. You probably know that people don't want to work. If somebody starts working harder, they tell them, hey, we are not working hard here, stop. Or even they start bullying them. No, build a performance culture that encourages plan execution is something very, very precious on a company scale, on the corporate scale, but also on a national scale. Number 8, the Brilliant Management Accountant directs management attention to relevant decision points. It's the attention economy, stupid, and it is very difficult for managers to do the right things and put their attention where it should be. No, not on their mobile phone, no. It should be where the crucial decision points are. And the Brilliant Management Accountants should understand that and cater this need. And last but not least, I don't know why it's not 10, but the Brilliant Management Accountant critically reflects on new management fads and fashions and uses them without neglecting the overall performance management cascade. I would even go further than that and say, yes, we have to be critical. Not everything that comes along is good for the company. Not everything that comes along is good for our employees. So overall, it is a critical mind and a skeptical mind. Nonetheless, we should be performance oriented, right? So a balance to strike again, but this is something that the management accountant, at least a brilliant one, will do. So if you include all of that, there's nothing that will stop you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching the video. This was the first video in this course. I'm looking forward to receiving your feedback. Thank you very much. Enjoy.